Alrighty. This one is Fergus William Russell's work, and the first things that I see right off the bat, I'm just going to set this up here. So the first things that I see right off the bat are the simple aspects of kind of the the character position and design. He's doing a two-page ad, so essentially what this would happen is this would be kind of spliced down the middle here, a little bit over. But that being said, there's a couple things that um, I would say to work on. First and foremost is the positioning of the body. Um, they're very static. They're very um, basic poses, and to be honest with you, I have these issues too. Partially because you work from reference enough, that type of thing, and then partially because it's the first thing that pops in your head, and I don't do enough thumbnails. So the first thing that I would say right off the bat is you have this guy yelling at, this king yelling at this prince or this other younger guy here. So the first thing is you want to be a little bit more dramatic. So what I would do is watch your proportions on your arm. I think the arm is going to be a little bit longer, just a hair. But the first thing that I would do is I'm going to put in my body position, and I'm going to arc my head a little bit towards that character. That being said, I'm going to turn my position a little bit side on the side and create kind of this elongated, more like pointing of the axe towards that character. And then that being said, I can push a little bit more spread into the legs, and that spread, what that's going to do is it's going to give me a stronger stance. Like I'm starting towards this guy, then um, I'm starting towards this guy, maybe even having him start to step off. Having him too flat-footed is giving me this sense of static. It's not doing anything. But if I lift that foot like he's going to start off from running, that becomes another aspect of the character itself. Same thing with this character. You want this younger um, looking character, and think about young and youth and how uh, what rambunctious and energetic they are. You want to get that energy into that character. Then what I would do is actually have him already start going towards the king. That's the first thing, leaning into it, and you can still have the sword in the back with the arms, and this style now looks a lot stronger, where this guy's going to rush in to attack. And I think that placement of that character is going to help tremendously. That being said, things that I would do, right now you've got this foggy kind of background, and the problem I see is that right off the bat, what you did, excuse me, what you did is on this character is you've got all this stuff going on in the background, but you divided it. And you divided it because you wanted to divide the paper composition. And in all reality, don't. You know, put stuff going on in the background that interlink these together. You've got this, you've got this path going here that um, is essentially giving me kind of this radial composition where I'm looking at the characters, and even your background is pointing to the center here. And I think that's okay to do, but the problem you have is your main focus is on your two characters. So by doing that, by putting this into the center, you can have that battle going on and still be okay with the composition. The next thing that I would say to do is try to get a little bit more illumination into here. And what I mean by that is, I'm just going to feather this just to kind of show you. So I'm just grabbing these two characters, and by going into your saturation and adding just a little bit more saturation like so, and darkening up the foreground, that now starts popping those guys out. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to I'm going to cut this out here, and I'll just erase this background. So, but by taking this and even adding a little bit more saturation and a little bit more darkness, that adds quite a bit of depth to your scene itself. I'm just kind of erasing some of this stuff out here. But by adding that depth, your characters now feel a little bit more like they're part of the world. They're coming out from the faded background. And you still can keep that faded background, but the issue that you have is with the desaturated look, nothing's really popping. But by saturating them up a little bit more and giving it a little bit more value, you could also even take, I would say, go to your adjustments and levels, and right now you see how dark it is. And if you want, you can kind of play with that level of darkness. And manipulate it that way too. So you can get a little bit more darks and lights in there. And that's an option too, if you want to play with that. The other aspect is give me points to draw the light. So what I'm saying by that is, right now, what do you want me to focus on? Do you want me to focus on the blades, or do you want me to focus on the characters? That's the type of thing that I'm looking for. So just by simply taking a little bit more dodge, and I now change that focus from, instead of being the focus of the character, I'm looking at my swords. They lighten it up. They pop up a little bit more. Things like that you want me to kind of pay attention to. And that the brighter blades are going to give me that kind of aspect. Now, if this looks like a war, this looks like a battle, the next thing that I would do is, if these are two people fighting, the next thing I would do is take something like, let's see here, I think I have some splatter in here. Too many brushes. And we'll just kind of play with it then. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and create a new layer, multiply on this layer, and simply using these red colors, and it would actually help if I'm on my brush. So let's grab something like this, scale it up a little bit. And so by adding that red in there, and things like that, gives me this aspect of, now I'm again using the color to draw my attention to those characters. That saturated red, even though it's on let's see here, even though it's on a very limited palette, that saturated red now pushes the eye to those characters. And again, things of metal, you might want to even say, okay, hey, I'm going to add a little bit of light to this metal here, things like that. The next thing that I would say, to do is to take your characters and get a little bit more wind going on, and just simply flowing the hair back a little bit more, maybe putting a belt or a sash on this character here that you want to create something else. So I would do maybe a new layer here. Let's bring this up, and I'm going to take this off. So I'm going to do maybe a belt. And take my brush. I think I have color dynamics. Dual brush. There we go. All right, so taking this belt here and just, pulling that belt out, and even if it was just like a dark green, a saturated dark green or something like that, very, very deep, that belt gives me a little wind now. Same thing here, taking this and pulling this over. Pull this as the wind is pulling it through. So that aspect is going to kind of give you a little bit better idea that things are flowing. Bending this over a little bit more with the saturated or the desaturated in there. So, make things look like the wind is going, and that'll give you a much more dynamic aspect. Also, adding in a couple little bits and pieces of dusts and specks and things like that, is going to help draw that aspect. So those are things that I would do as an overall to kind of give you a little bit more dynamic outlook on your particular piece. Saturating those colors, getting a little bit more wind in there, getting some dust specks, and just, it doesn't seem like much, but you can add in some of these dust specks and add some darks in there, and then just adding a little bit of a motion blur on there. Maybe even just angling it a little bit. Those motion blurs are going to kind of give you that aspect of what, a little bit more action in the background. So those are things I think that'll kind of help out everything. All right.